I was cheated on, not once, but twice, by two different husbands, and somehow it was the same woman both times. I wish I could say this is where the story ends, but what I discovered next broke me in a way I never saw coming. Hey loves, pull up a chair, pour yourself a glass of wine, and just breathe with me for a second. Because what I'm about to tell you sounds like the plot of a Lifetime movie that even the writers would reject for being too crazy. I've been cheated on twice, by two different husbands, with the exact same woman. Yes, you heard that right. What are the odds? 1 in a billion? A cruel cosmic joke? Or something much darker that I was never supposed to figure out? I spent years blaming myself, wondering if I was too trusting, too busy, too not enough. The pain was so deep I couldn't even cry some nights. I just sat on the bathroom floor staring at the tile until the sun came up. I wish I could tell you this story ends with the first heartbreak, but it doesn't. It gets so much worse, and then, somehow, it becomes the reason I finally found myself again. If you're a woman over 35 who's ever loved hard and lost harder, stay with me. This one's for us. My name is Sarah. I'm 47 now, living in a quiet little house outside Seattle with a garden that's finally mine and only mine. But 15 years ago I was 32, freshly divorced from my college sweetheart, and convinced I had already used up my one shot at love. Then Mark walked into my life. He was tall, steady, the kind of man who remembered how you took your coffee and showed up with soup when you had the flu. We met at a friend's backyard barbecue in Portland. Within 6 months we were engaged. Everyone said it was fast, but I was tired of being careful. I wanted the fairy tale. And for a while, I got it. We bought a cute craftsman house with a porch swing. We adopted a rescue lab named Bailey. We took weekend trips to the coast and talked about maybe trying for a baby someday. I felt safe. There was only one person who had been with me through every chapter of my life, my best friend Emily. We'd been inseparable since we were 22. She was the sister I never had. She helped me pick out my wedding dress, cried harder than I did at the ceremony, and moved into the guest house behind our property when her own marriage fell apart. I just need a soft place to land, she told me. Of course I said yes. Looking back, the signs were there in tiny, easy-to-ignore ways. She knew Mark's schedule better than I did. She'd text him, just checking on you when I was out of town for work. She'd laugh a little too hard at his jokes and touch his shoulder when she passed him in the kitchen. But I told myself I was being insecure. Emily was family. Mark was my husband. I had built my whole world on that trust. Until the night I came home early from a work conference and found the house dark, except for the soft glow coming from the guest house. I almost didn't go over there. I thought maybe Emily had a migraine, and Mark was helping her with something. But something in my gut, that quiet, female intuition we all learn to doubt, made me walk across the yard. The door was unlocked. I'll never forget the sound. Her laugh, his low murmur, the way the bed creaked in a rhythm I knew too well. I pushed the door open. There they were, my husband and my best friend, naked, tangled, in the bed I had made up with fresh sheets just 2 days earlier. The scream that came out of me wasn't even human. It was pure animal pain. Mark jumped up, babbling excuses. Emily just pulled the sheet up to her chest and looked at me with pity. Actual pity. Like I was the one who had done something wrong. The next 3 weeks were a blur of rage, tears, and lawyers. I found out it had been going on for 14 months. 14 months of them sneaking around in my own backyard while I planned our future. I lost my husband. I lost my best friend. I lost the version of myself who believed people were basically good. I stood in the middle of my empty living room the day the divorce was final, Bailey whining at my feet, and whispered to the walls, I didn't just lose a husband. I lost my entire world. It took me 2 full years to even feel human again. Therapy 3 times a week, long walks in the rain. I sold the house, moved to a tiny apartment downtown, and started over at 35 like a teenager with a mortgage. I learned to sit with the shame instead of running from it. My therapist, Dr. Patel, kept repeating the same gentle truth. Sarah, you didn't fail. You trusted. Those are not the same things. I started running again. I took a promotion at work that let me travel. I reconnected with old college friends I had lost touch with. Slowly, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the mistake wasn't that I loved too hard. The mistake was that I had ignored the tiny red flags because I wanted the picture-perfect life so badly. I told myself I would never ignore my gut again. I told myself the next man would be different. I told myself lightning doesn't strike twice. God, I was so wrong. I met David at 38, at a wine tasting event for charity. He was nothing like Mark. David was quiet, thoughtful, a little shy, a pediatric surgeon who spent his days saving babies and his evenings reading spy novels on his porch. He didn't rush me. We dated for 2 years before he even proposed. Slow, careful, safe. He knew about Mark. He knew about Emily. He held me when I cried about them on our 3rd date and said, "I will never make you feel small." We got married in a tiny ceremony in the San Juan Islands. Just us, Bailey, who had somehow survived all my chaos, and 2 witnesses. I wore a simple ivory dress and cried happy tears for the first time in years. For 3 years it was beautiful. We bought a house with a view of the mountains. We planted tomatoes together. We talked about growing old on that porch. There were tiny things I brushed off. He started keeping his phone face down more often. He'd get quiet when Emily's name came up in old stories. He'd take emergency calls at odd hours and step outside to talk. But I told myself I was projecting. I had done the work. I had healed. This was my reward. I was so busy believing I was finally safe that I missed the storm forming right in front of me. It started with the distance. David began coming home later. He'd kiss my forehead instead of my lips. Our sex life, which had always been gentle and connected, became mechanical. One night I found his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. A notification flashed. Can't stop thinking about last night. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I didn't confront him right away. I waited. I watched. I became the detective I swore I would never be again. Late nights, deleted messages, a hotel receipt in his gym bag for a night he was supposed to be at a medical conference 2 hours away. Every time I tried to talk to him, he'd shut down. "You're imagining things, Sarah. Not everyone is Mark." The words stung because part of me believed him. I didn't want to be the crazy, jealous wife again. But the dread was constant. It lived in my chest like a second heartbeat. Not again. Please, God, not again. I finally did it on a random Tuesday. I waited until he left for work, opened his laptop, he still used the same password he'd had for years, and went through everything. The photos were dated 3 weeks after our wedding. The messages went back almost 2 years. And the name at the top of every thread, Emily. My Emily. The same woman who had destroyed my first marriage had been sleeping with my second husband for nearly the entire time we'd been together. She had moved back to Seattle 6 months after my wedding to David. She had bumped into him at the hospital where he worked. She had played the long game. She had studied me. She knew exactly how to become the woman both of my husbands would choose over me. I sat on the kitchen floor with Bailey's head in my lap and read every single message until I couldn't see through the tears. It wasn't a coincidence. It was never a coincidence. At that moment I realized this was never about them. This was about her. She didn't just betray me once. She hunted me. She studied my life, my weaknesses, my type of man, and she took them both. I didn't scream this time. I was done screaming. I called Emily first. She answered on the second ring, voice sugary sweet. "Hey girl, long time." I read her one message out loud, the one where she described what she had done to my husband in the hotel. She didn't even deny it. She actually laughed. A soft, almost proud little laugh. "Sarah, you always picked such predictable men. I just showed them what they were missing. You should thank me. I saved you from wasting more years." I hung up without another word. David came home to divorce papers on the kitchen table and me sitting there calm as still water. He cried. He begged. He said she seduced him, that he was weak. I looked at the man I had once trusted with my entire heart and said, "She didn't just betray me, she studied me, and you let her." For the first time in my life, I didn't blame myself. I didn't wonder what I did wrong. I finally understood. Some people don't break your heart because you're broken. They break it because they're empty, and they want what you have. I divorced David 6 months ago. I blocked Emily on every platform. I changed my number. I sold the house with the mountain view and bought the little place I have now, the one with the garden that only I water. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm awake. I trust differently now. I trust myself first. I still believe in love, but I believe in boundaries more. I believe in quiet intuition. I believe that the right people don't make you question your worth every single day. For years, I thought I was the problem. But the truth? Some patterns aren't accidents. They're warnings we ignore. If you've ever blamed yourself for someone else's betrayal, tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story.